Freek Swart, die Burger, Cape Town. Which economic program do you suggest for South Africa? I got the impression yesterday that you depended on the communist program to execute the redistribution of wealth, which you would like to see. Is that right?
Well, I'm happy to meet you. I have got a Cape Townian background as well. I grew up in Stellenbosch and I enjoyed my stay there for a long time. Which economic program? Well, I think South Africans are discussing which is the best economic program to implement in a post-apartheid South Africa. Even non-Marxists are agreed that something has got to be done about the redistribution of wealth in our country. I know at any rate, I know that Professor Sampieter Blanche of Stellenbosch, who for a long time was a member of the Nationalist Party, I don't know if he still is, also agrees that in addressing the imbalances in our country, something has got to be done, something drastic. You know, we want to bring about social harmony in our country. And that social harmony is impossible if we do not redistribute wealth and resources. I'm not referring to vulgar equalization. All I'm saying is that every person in South Africa, at least we should try, that should be our objective, should have at least 3 meals a day, should have shelter, not the squatter shacks, no compounds. Every child must have access to proper schools. We must have the same medical facilities. How do we do that? I don't think we South Africans must look for models. But I think we have got a duty, if we've got to stop the current divisions, if we've got to heal the wounds of apartheid divisions, to balance things. Now, you are an Afrikaner. You have got your own history. You are part of the important national groups in our country. At one time, you were disadvantaged, sir. The British treated you as a second-class citizen. You were not given, your language was not given the same status as English. You were an ordinary farmer in the 30s and 40s and very poor, most of you. We are exactly in the same position as blacks. You know, I went back where I was born, where my mother is, as soon as I got into the country. She stays in only one hut. When I had to sleep there, she had to negotiate with neighbors to provide her newly arrived son with some shelter. I'm just using me as an example. Most of us are in that position, most blacks, in the rural areas and in the townships. Now, apartheid has decided not to provide housing for us. Now, you were nationalized. It's only now that you are speaking about privatization. You nationalize ESCOM, ISCO, SETS. You worked out affirmative programs to uplift the Afrikaner. You helped them with heavy subsidies to buy farms so that they should have land. The ANC says, equally, emerging out of a disastrous situation which has impoverished millions, the state must intervene. We cannot leave it to private enterprise to try to distribute resources. And certainly we want to nationalize enterprises like ESCOM, ISCO, SETS. But at the same time, we say we are for a mixed economy. And in doing so, we must also take into consideration not to repeat the mistakes of Eastern Europe and Africa. I think we're all agreed about economic growth so that more jobs should be there. And I'm sure when we nationalize, we shall take that into consideration. But essential services, those things are needed by the people, like postal services, transport, electricity. A government must ensure that, Mr. and Mrs. Average also get a slice of the cake. But we shall allow private enterprise to continue in our country. We shall continue to accept foreign investment. But of course, every government sits down to draw guidelines so that in the final analysis, the operations of conglomerates like Anglo-American, for instance, has committed a crime against our people. I'm sure you have been to the compounds. Despite, the accumulation of profits, the housing they have built for our people is not fit for animals. And the conditions, discriminatory conditions and labor practices are terrible. We as a government must ensure, we must set up guidelines for the operations of private enterprise as well as multinational corporations. Yes, profits will be allowed to be taken out, but at the same time, they've got an obligation towards the social upliftment of those who are participating in the operations of their companies. I think this is only, people say that nationalization has not worked anywhere. We don't have that history. We know that the British after the war nationalized, I'm sure the French as well. There's a bit of nationalization in the Scandinavian countries as well. Our nationalization, in fact, is guided by a concern to bring about social justice. Our capitalism, I said so when I was speaking yesterday, has never demonstrated a social conscience. I don't know the situation in other countries. That's why, as I say, we are for a mixed economy. But again, I want to assure whites in South Africa, we have no intentions to nationalize private property. They will remain in their houses. Some people are so simplistic. They think that next time there's an ANC government, we are going to be rushing to grab people's cars. We are going to be grabbing people's houses. In our constitutional guidelines, we are emphatic that private property is private property, and every South African will retain his or her private property. And I think this assurance should be satisfying to those who possess houses, beautiful cars, and that sort of thing. We are only concerned about the commanding heights of our economy.
Hang on, let's get it to here and then first.